court appearances that we've been making, not just for the Canadian Human Rights, their original complaint, but also because of the contempt charge for keeping the line going, we're running a tremendous legal bill, because the case that we have right now is one that is extremely complicated, and it's one that's going to require us to challenge the legal authority by which they are bringing us to the tribunal. The Canadian Human Rights Commission has never seriously been challenged on their, I guess, the validity of their organization to actually censor people's thought and speech. We have a lawyer that's prepared, we have two lawyers actually, and they're both prepared to take this on. Unfortunately, the funding that we're getting from the government at this time will only pay for one lawyer. We're going to have to raise the money amongst ourselves to pay for the second lawyer. Originally, before we got any funding whatsoever to help defer the costs, the lawyers told us at a meeting that Wolfgang and I were at, and I think if I can see Wolfgang here, I don't think he'd mind if I shared that information. They told us it would cost us $100,000 to take this case to the Supreme Court. Now that's obviously going to be a project which could take 4 or 5 years. We'll remember that Ernst Zundel took his false news charge to court and was able to have that charge stricken from the Canadian Criminal Code. So I think that's what we're looking to do with respect to the Canadian Human Rights Commission's ability to go out and censor speech and certainly censor thought. So although we don't need $100,000 next week, that could be what we're tentatively looking at raising over the next 4 or 5 years for our legal costs. Now, the reason that it's so massive is because the tremendous amount of research that has to go into this type of a case when you're actually challenging the law. And I believe with our preliminary discussions that we've had with the lawyer that that we're going to, and it's no secret, the Human Rights Commission knows that, we're actually going to attack them by way of the Charter of Rights and Freedoms. And we're going to make this a free speech issue. I mean, all the way. That's how we're going to attack this problem. That's how we're going to fight it. And that's the reason that we're going to have such tremendous costs. Now, if we can't mount the defense, it technically means that we're probably going to have to shut down the hotline, which leaves us with, you know, not very many options left. I mean, we only have perhaps 180 people in this room, so if everybody opened up the hotline for one day in 180 days, we'd all be in jail, and really that wouldn't, you know, serve a purpose. So, except that we'd all have company while we're doing time. Now, I'm going to ask, we're going to start passing the bucket around, so to speak. Now, there she is. Tracy is going to help us here. I'll start the ball rolling here. And we need you to help us in any way that you can, and if you can help us a little bit today and some more next week and some more next month, that'd be great too. Oh, one interesting thing that we did learn last weekend from the Simon Wiesenthal Center is that Mr. Martinez, despite what people are telling you, is not in any kind of protective custody because he insists on speaking. Now, I don't want to quote anybody out of context, but did somebody mention that disgusting, putrid, moronic, Neanderthal-like individual? Did somebody say his name? What was the quote that you, what was it that you, how you described him? What was the quote?
Hey, fat little man.
Anyway, the fat little man, well, shuffling down Bay Street yesterday, thought that he saw one of the members of the Heritage Front, who by court order is no longer to associate with us. He shrieked out at the top of his lungs, looking through his glasses that appear to have been supplied to him, compliments of the Coca-Cola Corporation. And he ran to get his friend Bill Dunphy of the Toronto Sun and a photographer to try to take a picture of this person, shrieking at the top of his lungs that it was Elise Hannigan, and then demanding of the police that they arrest this person. Well, the joke was on Elise. So I understand the natives are taking up a collection tonight down in front of 16 Spadina Avenue to get Rodney glasses. Anyway, the reason I tell you that story is just to illustrate to you what a sniveling little rat that guy can be. Here we are, politically opposed, admittedly at opposite ends, but the guy is so chintzy, he's trying to get a 17-year-old girl thrown in jail for breach of an undertaking. Remember that these are the type of individuals that we're dealing with. Really don't forget it, because this is exactly what these people are like. Another thing that I'd like to discuss briefly with you is using the Heritage Front name. It is good to use the Heritage Front name when we promote the concept of white separatism, when we promote the concept of white rights, when we promote the concept of white unity. We would appreciate it if people did not use the Heritage Front name when promoting the concept of death on the telephone against another individual, throwing objects that burn on people's front porches, or throwing rocks through windows. We just had another visit from the police. It appears that one of two things has happened. Either special interest group lightning hit a house the same way it did out in Kitchener and we're being blamed for it, or the same special interest type lightning that hit an abortion clinic hit somebody's front porch, and they're trying to allege that members of the Heritage Front were somehow involved in that. So I would just ask everyone to cooperate. The lefties, for example, when they do actions like that, they just make up a new name every time. You know, one day they're out demonstrating throwing eggs or the ARA, the next day they're lesbians for a free Guatemala. You know, so use your imagination, there's a million names.
White power. White power. White power. White power. White power. White power.